Greetings from Victoria. My name is Garnet Schulhauser, and I am a Level 2 QHHT practitioner and the author of 4 books in the spiritual genre. QHHT, of course, stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, which is a hypnosis technique developed over 40 years by Dolores Cannon. My books are all in the spiritual genre, as I mentioned. They're Dancing on a Stamp, Dancing Forever with Spirit, Dance of Heavenly Bliss, and Dance of Eternal Rapture. You can find more information about QHHT on my website, which is garnetschulhauserqhht.com, and that URL is at the end of this video. Before we get into the serious topic of today, I have a funny story to relate to you. It seems that a city slicker from New York was hunting ducks in Texas one day, and he managed to shoot a duck which dropped down into a field on the other side of a fence. And the sign on the fence said, "No hunting, no trespassing." Well, the city slicker kind of looked around and decided, oh, what the heck, and he started climbing over the fence. Well, he just got down on the other side when all of a sudden a truck drove up, and in it was an elderly, frail farmer. And the farmer said to him, "What are you doing?" And the city slicker said, "Well, I shot this duck and I'm coming to retrieve it." The farmer says, "No, you can't do that. The duck's on my property and you can't get it." And the city slicker said, "Hey, listen, I have a friend who's a fantastic trial lawyer in New York, and if you don't let me have the duck, I'm going to sue you for everything you're worth." Well, the old coot said, "I guess you don't understand how things are settled here in Texas. In Texas, we settle such matters with what we call the 3-kick Texas rule." And the city slicker says, "I've never heard of that. How does that work?" And the old coot says, "Well, I kick you 3 times, and then you kick me 3 times, and we keep on going until somebody gives up." Well, the young guy said, "Well, I think I could do that, so let's go for it." So the old coot says, "Okay, me first." So he walks up to the young guy and he gives him a solid kick right in the groin. Well, the young man is doubled over in pain. And then the old coot gives him a big knee to the head, which knocks him to the ground. And then he's lying there writhing in pain. The old farmer comes up to him and gives him a real swift kick in the stomach. While the young man is rolling around in pain, but he manages to struggle to get up. And he says, "Okay, you old coot, now it's my turn." And the old farmer says, "No, I give up. You can have the duck." And now to a more serious topic. Today I'm going to relay a story to you about one of my QHHT sessions where my client had a very fascinating past life regression. As many of you know, in a QHHT session, clients are hypnotically induced into a very deep state of trance called the theta level through words and imagery. The first part of any QHHT induction takes the client back to a past life chosen for them by their higher self. And sometimes these past lives have some relevance to the client's current life. Now, most of the past lives that I've had clients regress to are past lives as humans on planet Earth. But occasionally I run into a client that has a past life as an alien life form on another planet. But the vast majority of my cases, people have past lives on Earth which are very mundane and nothing exciting is really happening. Dolores Cannon, who developed the QHHT process and who did thousands of sessions, called these sort of very ordinary human lives, quote, potato digging lives. But every once in a while, a client will be regressed to a past life which is very unusual or has something extraordinary happening. So in the case at hand, my client was a young lady, and she easily went into a very deep trance, and we regressed her back to a past life. And when she came off the cloud, she was standing in the hot sun in the middle of a compound with a lot of other men. She described herself as a young male with bronze skin and long dark hair, and she was wearing a short sleeveless tunic and leather sandals on her feet. And she was watching an older man standing on a balcony at one far side of the compound, and this man was telling the group of men that she was standing with that he had purchased them as slaves and that he was going to train them to be gladiators so that they could eventually one day fight in the ring. And so for the next several weeks, they trained long hours every day with wooden swords and spears, fighting each other and learning various techniques of fighting so that they could become very adept gladiators. The living conditions in this place were pretty dismal. They slept on thin straw mats on the cold floor. They were served nothing but stale bread and a thin gruel. Well, after several weeks of this training, they were one day loaded onto a cart and hauled away. And after several hours, they were loaded in front of a large amphitheater. And the slave owner proudly announced that they had been selected to fight in the Roman Colosseum. They were herded into a basement room underneath the Colosseum, where they were kept there for several days. And basically they were huddling in fear because they could hear the crowd roar above them as various gladiator fights went on. They couldn't see these, but they knew that there was being a lot of killing going on, and that a lot of the gladiators up in the ring would die, as would they when they got their chance. Well, then one day they were herded out of their holding cell down a long corridor until they were standing in the middle of this large amphitheater, the Roman Colosseum. And then suddenly, at the far end of the Colosseum, a large door opened, and out strolled about a dozen African lions, full-grown male lions. They looked very lean and gaunt and hungry, likely because they had been starved for several days. Well, once the lions noticed this group of men standing there, they lost no time, and they quickly bounded towards the gladiators in a frenzy, hoping to taste some human flesh. Well, my client fought bravely and courageously, and she managed to kill a couple of these beasts until finally a third one knocked her down from behind, and she ended up sprawled on the ground with the lion on top. She said that she could recall hearing the crunch sound as this lion bit into her neck, but then immediately she found herself hovering above her body, watching the final moments of her physical death. At this point, she was very happy to be out of her human body and free from the human constraints and free from the mauling of the lion who was helping himself to her body. She looked around and she saw that her guides were there waiting for her. Her guides took her by the hand and led her away from the arena. They went up through the clouds and eventually came to a dark tunnel with a very bright light at the end of it. And her guides were leading her by the hand through this tunnel towards the light. And at this stage, she knew that she was going home, and she was happy to be done with that life and its horrible, tragic ending. When the client came out of trance, she said that explained why, ever since she was a little girl, she's had this inexplicable fear of big cats whenever she saw them at the zoo or on TV. Well, that was certainly a very tragic ending to that person's life, but it's not unusual because many of us have experienced very tragic endings in our past lives, and lots of people have also experienced them over the ages. So it's not entirely unusual. But let's all hope that none of us has to experience a death as tragic as that one. That's all for now, folks. Enjoy your journey, and remember to keep on dancing.